Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the discussion on how are enterprises dealing with the unprecedented growth in consumers and employees adopting digital platform post-COVID without compromising on performance and security. This session is powered by Cloudflare. I am Dimple Bajwa from ETH, welcoming you all to the PT Live Roundtable. The pandemic disrupted businesses globally, and consequently, companies embraced the model of working remotely. BFSI industry was one of the early adopters of using technology to connect with the consumers and employees to carry out their work remotely. Similarly, consumers of banking and financial services started using digital channels as a primary means to conduct their financial transactions. With the surge in consumers and employees relying on digital channels to conduct their day to day operations, enterprises now must deal with the new challenges of upscaling, performance, and security. With the growing usage of apps and emergence of open banking platforms, cybersecurity today has become a challenge that the banking and financial services organizations must address. Companies have been implementing security measures on an ad hoc basis, and they are saddled with a patchwork security architecture that results in a higher TCO. Today's discussion will help enterprises strike the right balance between scale and security. And the speakers will discuss solutions to the challenges by sharing their experiences and offering insights during the session. They will also focus on increasing the usage of emerging technologies such as cloud, edge, IoT, and 5G in providing scale and performance of services. And to shed more light on the same, we have with us today Anand Dalmia, co-founder Fisdom, Prerak Mehta, CTO Easy Home Finance Limited, Sanjay Singh, Senior VP SRE DevOps Angel One, Vamsi Ithamraju, SVP Engineering and Head IT Neogrowth, Rajeev Barnwal, Chief Technology Officer and Head of Products at Rapipay Fintech Private Limited, Varundeep Kaur, CIO Spice Money, Samuel Sathyajith, Head of India and SAARC Region Cloudflare. And to moderate the session, we have Mr. Ashwini Mishra, Consulting Editor, ETH. I'd like to request the audience to pose their questions in the Q&A or the chat window. Ashwini will bring them up during or towards the end of the session. And without further ado, I would now hand over the baton of this session to Ashwini. Over to you, Ashwini.
Thank you for the introduction, Dimple, and welcome to all our panel members and all our viewers. Thank you for your time and look forward to an interesting session. And I hope there are some key learnings to take away from the discussion. As Dimple mentioned, there has been a massive acceleration in digital adoption, and we have witnessed an unprecedented growth, both in the consumers and the employees adopting digital channels and platforms. Alongside with this adoption of digital solutions, mass remote working, and rapid IT changes, we have also seen multifold increase in data breaches, sophisticated ransomware attacks. There have been cloud exploits to phishing attacks and so on. And in many ways, a new set of security challenges was unleashed. The threat landscape has also become more intense and complex, and that has brought in more responsibility for IT and business leaders like yourselves. The BFSI sector, like the ones in this panel, have also been one of the key targets for attackers. Fintech companies have been considered to be the torchbearers in digital financial services, particularly post-COVID. However, we have also seen a phenomenal rise in the financial transactions and a significantly upward trend that has been witnessed in the number of security breaches and incidents. With this background, I will open up the forum for discussion and request you all to take a couple of minutes and share your views on how in the last year and a half you have successfully cultivated a distributed workforce by introducing new digital technologies that is productive and also keeps your business secure? What are the key challenges that you face in terms of security? Let's begin with you, Anand. As an automated investment service provider, how is Fisdom looking to navigate the risks and challenges that digital acceleration and innovation brings?
Thanks, Ashwini. I think we was blessed, Ashwini, to be a fintech company. Our customers were always digital. We were always on the cloud. So scaling up as we got more customers was never an issue. We were also, we always, I think, given that we're only 5 years old as a company, we always had the culture of people working from home. And, we have 7 offices and a sales team, which basically helps bank, with wealth management solutions. So we have close to 10 banks where we partner with them for helping their customers invest in mutual funds and a bunch of other investment products. That sales team is across 100 cities. So we were always used to a team which was distributed, not coming to office, and using completely digital means to serve our customers. Where we found an issue was, basically around some of our support teams like, the call center team, our operations team, which were coming to these offices and working from them. So I would say, from the technology side, we were completely up to the mark in terms of, having the ability to completely work from home in a distributed employee setup. I think where we put a lot of focus was on 4 things. I would say those were softer aspects, if I can put it that way. The first was to make sure that all our employees have the right hardware or the technology tools to be able to work from home. As you'll appreciate, a lot of these guys, it's just not about handing a laptop to them and saying, okay, now you are digital.
True.
Making sure that they have all the tools. And if you work out of Bombay, you'll appreciate people have small homes and 3 people in the same house trying to do video calls. It's not that easy. So we wanted to make sure that all our employees have the right tools and the infrastructure to be able to work out of home. The 2 teams that we beefed up, one was the tech support team. Now, a lot of the guys, who come to offices don't really know everything, and how to use the various softwares that we want them to use. So there was an active tech support team to make sure that if they're facing any issues, they can reach out to the tech support team, be it, not being able to log into a certain software that they need to look at, or be it, they're facing some issues with their computer, anything of that sort. We made sure that they had 24/7 tech support available to them and an active engagement with them. The third was training. A lot of times we saw our leaders just writing these long emails and sending to our guys in terms of, okay, this is what's supposed to be done. We made sure that there was a very effective training which was done. And after every training, there's an assessment to make sure that people understood in terms of what was being asked out of them, in terms of the process that they now follow working out of home. So a lot of effort was, deployed in training. And I think thanks to our HR team, they really had to go out of the way to make sure that everyone was available for training. And we were tracking how many people are up the curve. And the last is, I think, we made sure that the communication with our team was very strong. So what I mean by communication was, we made sure that each of the leaders were doing a weekly review of each of their teams, having a lot of empathy and trying to understand, okay, what are the challenges that you're facing working from home? How can we make life better for you? Because we realized that, suddenly our volumes are going to increase. As a fintech company, markets have been great. Over the last 1 year, I think our volumes have increased 5x, if not more, across products. And we wanted to make sure that our employees are always with us and we show them a lot of empathy. They don't have a burnout. So HR did a lot of things to make sure that they are completely connected to the company. The second is communication was around, smaller groups to understand whether they are completely comfortable, what are the challenges, whether they're getting burnt out, whether they're understanding the new era in which they need to operate, also understanding the boundaries. See, sometimes we don't want to create an example by telling people that you are not supposed to do this. I think in training, they knowing that someone is tracking them on these parameters at times helps them to know that, look, I'm supposed to do this. So a lot of training was being done across teams. And, we used to do our town halls once a quarter. We shifted that to once a month. And, there was an open line. We are 2 co-founders. We made sure that there's an open line to both of us across the teams, to come up to us, not just facing challenges, but the requirements that they have to make sure that they can operate at 100% capacity. So
very interesting. Right, Anand. Yes.
Then on the customer side, because customers were always digital. So I think, we really wanted to make sure that our employees feel completely empowered and trained and have the systems and processes in place to be able to operate at 100% efficiency.
Quite interesting. So 5x increase in volumes is phenomenal. So you've touched upon the right tools, infrastructure, the tech support, training, and communication being a key element. On the security piece, Anand, any specific concerns that you have? While you have seen growth in transactions, is security a cause of concern, and what are the threats that you see on the horizon?
Look, we are in a regulated industry, so we always made sure that and we had a distributed setup. So I think from a data security point of view, we always were already doing this because we had multiple offices, so we had all the tools in place. I think the only thing that we did was we enabled more dashboards for our leaders to track some of the activities of their team members. So earlier they knew they can go to certain tools and track it. We made life easier for them by creating dashboards, automated dashboards that they can review on a daily basis to make sure that they can check everything from a data security perspective in terms of who's accessing what. So we always have these data blocks defined basis access, because employees, only a certain employee or a team only gets to see what they're supposed to do. But we created any exceptions dashboards for people to see that whether their employees are not trying to do anything which is not allowed. So today, firstly, the communication to the employees had gone that you're not supposed to do this. But still, if they try and do something, we get an exception reporting, and we created a dashboard for that so that the leaders can see this particular employee was trying to do something. And then when we had with that employee, why was that employee trying to do something? So I think, the only thing that we did was, for leaders, given the number of things that they were doing, to create dashboards by analytics teams so that it was all at the tip of the at their fingertips to see the tracking of their employees.
Right. So we'll come back to you, Anand. So the points that you have highlighted are very, very critical here. Sanjay, let's hear from you. Angel Broking again has unveiled its new identity, Angel One. You've transformed to offer financial services along with other stockbroking services. How are you aligning your security posture with the shifting world of threat vectors?
Right. So I'll talk about two things, Ashwini. Primarily, one is the surge in volume, right, and what we have observed in last little over 1 year prior to pandemic and after pandemic effect, right? So personally, I have seen it's about 50x growth, which is like huge. No matter how you plan for your capacity, you are always in catching up mode, right? So one is we made sure that capacity is not just the infrastructure, CPU, memory, typical the storage utilization. Right. But also you have visibility about the benchmarking of the application performance index, right? If you say that, okay, if this is the configuration of my infrastructure, this infrastructure can scale up to say 100 or 100,000 transactions per second, right? Now, how are we monitoring that? So have a right monitoring in place, which can give you up to second-based transactions, that this is where we are, and based on that you create the capacity, right, in more proactive way. And we applied the thumb rule that the moment it goes beyond 50%, you get ready for the infrastructure so that it doesn't go beyond 70%. Right. So again, having the right monitoring and enough capacity and the insights of the application benchmarking data as well. The second thing was the KYC digitization, right? So now it is fully self-serve, right? There is no human touch anywhere. And as a customer, you get onboarded in a few minutes, right? So that was second thing. The third thing was, on the team side, right? Again, after the pandemic, everyone started working from home and people were feeling, little demotivated that, hey, there is no FaceTime, right? And we don't get to meet with people and all that. So now, we started with daily stand-up where we first do some chit chat for 5-10 minutes. And then we get into the business, like, what is the plan for today, for example, right? And what have we done yesterday, how, if there are any roadblockers and all that. Talking about the security, so, just around the time pandemic started, right? We had a, setup in our office where we had, more like, the jump box where you log in, especially for people working in the database team, where you first log into Jumpbox and then you go to the actual server, right? And that started becoming a bottleneck, right? Because now there is no office, everyone is connecting from home. So we adopted this zero trust network, using which we define the role-based access control, using which, like, any employee in the company, everyone has their role defined, and based on the role, you have access given to the system. And right. Now everything is like more of a wide-based whitelisting based kind of access. It's like, for example, if you have a service A and service A has, say, 3 tier, and within, say, tier 1 and tier 2, you need to only access this particular service or service or on a particular port. Only that particular thing is allowed and nothing else, right? So everything is blacklisted, but allow only what is legitimate and what is needed. So these are some of the controls and some of the measures that we applied, Ashwini.
Right. Very interesting to hear about the zero trust framework, and good to see that organizations are moving in that direction. Yes, Prerak, let's hear from you. How have you been dealing with security threats for your company, and what kind of approach to security have you taken?
Great. Hi everyone. So as Anand sir also mentioned, right? Like we are governed by RBI, and we were always fully compliant even pre-COVID. And luckily, we also had adopted cloud at a very initial stage. So that has always been, our focus. And with the changing times, with the teams, becoming distributed, there were some challenges, like moving to, like, the devices had to be registered. Like we also moved to the concept of zero trust. So we always had role-based access, but devices got registered, the networks got controlled. Uh, we moved to session-based access. Like each and every time there is a request, it will be validated, sort of a thing. So a lot of changes did happen post-COVID, but they were only to support the remote working, and at the same time we ensured that there was enough training, enough retraining also to the team, to the employees, the non-tech side as well, such that no data breaches or no things get open on Git or anything like that, right, where the open discussions get accessible. uh, Similarly, we started adopting a lot of collaboration tools, but at the same time, collaboration tools also had their own risks. So we ensured, proper training and these things, frequent, upscaling was also required to all the employees of the company, which has helped us now. After a year, we are seeing a lot more awareness, dependencies. Dependencies have been reduced. Awareness is there, and with a lot more security emphasis, everybody is aware of the risks they also have with their actions.
Right. Yes, Vamsi, let's hear from you. So let's keep it very focused towards security.
Yeah, I think I will pretty much agree with what my peers say. We are cloud born, right? We are born cloud native. So
I guess
that
most of
offered,
you in the panel are, so all are
right,
digital natives, right? Yes.
right, especially the fintech. So we being no exception. The Neogrowth Credit is a MSME lending digital fintech. So yeah, we were born in the cloud, and that augured well for us. A few things that we really topped up on, in addition to what cloud offers. I'll just focus, since it's been fairly well articulated by some of my other peers. I will just look at the pieces that we plugged in post cloud, right? One is the mobile device management capabilities, right? So what mobile device management capabilities gave us is some kind of a virtual play store, akin to a Google Play Store or an iOS App Store. I get to do a mini Play Store where my enterprise apps are hosted, and that's to the extent where my employees get to access anywhere, any device. But then you need to have that MDM installed, and then you get to access what you need. Number one. Second is, it's always on need basis. So there were role based definitions. If it's a DBA, he gets access to databases and nothing else. If it's application support specific to the very application that he needs, he gets access. If it is a customer center team, customer care team, then they only have access to OzoneTel, which is the call center software that they have on the CRM platform, so on and so forth, right? So it was extremely fragmented access. Therefore, in the number of points of breach are anyway limited.
Right.
And the fact that these are then available on an MDM kind of a software, what it made is that, one is it is integrated with my Active Directory, and therefore I know who's getting in, who's getting out, and the access is limited only through that particular device where MDM is installed, and therefore all the security policies that I get to push on, let's say, Windows or MacBooks, I get to push also onto mobiles. So my policies are consistent across devices. So this is something I think which augured very well in the initial days of going on, complete remote work. In addition to intrinsic cloud capabilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Another thing that we talked up on cloud is, our firewalls were largely physical, right? Whether it is at our corporate offices, at our network level, the firewalls were largely physical. So one additional firewall layer that we brought in was the web application firewall, which is again a cloud native capability offered on most cloud platforms. In our case, it was AWS, but then it's a common capability across, Google.
Solutions. Right. Right.
So this is broadly what.
Right, right, right. So, Varundeep, let's have it from you, Rajeev as well. So, any one of you.
Yeah. So I'll take it up, Ashwin. So while I agree with Anand and Vamsi and Prerak that security becomes a very key ingredient in times of pandemic, while we are highly regulated by RBI, and I would say that before even the pandemic, we were largely prepared for the security aspects of it, because we have to undergo a lot of audits, RBI, CISA, DISA audits, where we are bound to have those kind of clearances. And in our organization, there are two aspects which we are very particular about, that we have to take care of the compliances. It doesn't need to be a tick mark activity. It has to be followed in spirit. And other thing is about people. So coming on to people first, when it comes to security, I believe employees or people are the first line of defense. With the pandemic coming up, there have been a lot of phishing attacks which have been happening, like people getting emails, false advisories, like false charity requests and all that stuff. So we thought that unless and until people have that kind of awareness, they will keep on falling victim to all these incidents. And no matter what kind of security and what kind of infrastructure we put in, we will always have people being the weakest link. So we invested in terms of information awareness, and that is a part of our induction program also, and that is also regularly conducted. We also do a regular assessment in terms of like what is the awareness of the employees, because being ISO 27001 certified organization, we need to make sure that our employees, our policies are in line. However, keeping the fact in mind that security should not take away the ease of use. It should not shut all the doors, and it should not allow that it is not allowing anyone to enter. So having said that, during the pandemic, I think we only invested in the data leak prevention, the DLP part of it. We strengthened the parameter security, the endpoints on the laptops and devices, because we felt that these are one areas where people may not feel and find out, because in office network, you can restrict a lot of things. And people when operating from like outside their home, so they may not be aware. So wherever we could put the digitization or technology in order to protect it, we have invested in that. Here we felt that it is not going to be the possibility. There we have tried to put in awareness. And apart from that, here we had already invested like in security layers. We are already on ECMI, we having WAP, then firewalls are there, then WAF is there. Then at application level security also, whatever code we write, no code before even the pandemic, no code goes into production unless and until it has the AppSec clearance. So we are very particular about it. And during this pandemic, because the number of, I would say, breaches, data breaches have started happening. So we have also started monitoring, like like we are using Google. So people use a lot of collaboration tools like Google Docs or Google spreadsheets. So they simply go and share it with someone in the organization or outside the organization without thinking what could be the impact of that. You have sensitive information leakages, and then in there we are also doing a regular monitoring on that. We are guiding people who are not taking care, like they have shared a document with anyone, so we go and coach them that this may have these benefits and these consequences. And apart from that, here if I talk about on the customer connect, where our merchants are there, so there also there is another level of awareness which is being done, because it is not that your employees will be the only line of defense that you have.
Precisely, security should be inside and outside, with the whole
Yes,
ecosystem itself,
right. So here, like we have also issued a lot of advisories. We connect with them, we educate them that these are the things that they should do, they should not do. Like if they keep on receiving calls that may be false calls, in terms of OTPs and other things, we have incorporated additional measures where we come to know, like if there is some kind of a velocity check breaches that are happening. So from that perspective, I would say that is important. And in this pandemic situation, what is also important, that leaders cannot have like a predefined response plan to everything, right? So they need to showcase the behaviors and mindsets that will help them not to overreact, but to help them look forward also, because there is a lot of chaos while you're trying to tell a lot of people a lot of things. It is important because there are a lot of exigencies at home. People might not take care of that because due to that. And in terms of security also, because you need to have people backups also. You never know, while you have primaries and secondaries created, both of the people becoming unavailable due to the COVID. So what will you do in that case? That means you have to introduce somebody else who has got the expertise, but you have to define the access control and mechanism and tracking in such a way that your data assets or the whatever information is sensitive stays protected. So in that way, it is a mix and match. I will say anything which is, be it digitization, be it security, it will always have two angles, people as well as technology. Unless both of them are in sync, I think we will have a gap somewhere in between. So we are trying in this situation, while we are digitizing everything, we are taking these two aspects hand in hand. Otherwise, like we might miss out on something. So
very rightly put, Varundeep. So as you said, you can't shut all the doors, and IT leaders don't want to be seen as roadblocks, and at the same time they don't want their companies to be put in front of a speeding bus. So that cautious approach has to be there. Yes, Rajeev, quickly, if you could share your views as well.
Sure. Thanks, Ashwini. So I would not speak on the security side because we all have been talking on the security side. So I'll just talk about that. Okay, how this pandemic has actually reshaped the fintech. We are talking about innovation. So when actually this pandemic started last year in March, I was just thinking that, okay, what are the opportunities? What are the roadblocks that we have? And definitely from last 6-7 years, we have been talking about digital transformations. Previously, it was called transformations, process transformations, program transformations. The new buzzword has come, digital transformations. So my point was that what I started personally thinking that, okay, there were two key aspects of the digital transformation: how I can improve the customer experience. At the same time, what is the cost saving or the cost optimization I'm bringing to the organization? And definitely when I started digging into it, I found, or I recreated, or I designed a lot of new products. One is KYC digitization. And being in a fintech, still we are heavily regulated by the central bank and the government as well.
Right.
So the digital KYC, which is now being used by many organizations. So definitely I was also one of the lucky one to have that, which brought the cost optimization as well as the improve the customer experience. There were few new products, and then this pandemic brought an idea stating that, okay, what is the data warehouse or the data lake? Because all the fintechs are generating tons of data. How we are going to utilize that? what is the meaningful insights I'm going to get out of that so that it actually becomes meaningful for me. So somebody was sharing like video with me last week that they were like a broke house or the bricks and mortars kind, but that is how the data looks like. And once the data is like transported or transferred to the data warehouse, I'm using all these. So all this digital transformation, I can say in other words, is heavily being backed on the artificial intelligence. We are using machine learning heavily. We are using natural language processing. We are using natural language generations to actually let the machine write the English, like how we are talking about. But definitely it needs a lot of supervised or the unsupervised learning. So this data warehouse is where like the lot of machine learning work was done, a lot of rule engines were created. And those data, which is really hard for the manual people to process and bring the meaningful data.
You're bringing in more intelligence for your users,
in less than
right?
5 minutes.
Right.
Just the click of a button. And that's like we come about the transaction per second, the TPS, which is the generic word in the industry. Prior to the pandemic, if it was like, so if I talk about myself, prior to pandemic, I was processing around 200 transactions per second. Now I have scaled to 1,000 transactions per second.
Right.
When I was at MasterCard, I was actually processing up to like 500,000 transactions per second. Daily, I was processing like 25, 27 billion transactions. So that is the scale that the entire industry has to think about.
Precisely, so very well said, Rajeev. So AI is definitely playing a key role across industries, and BFSI is one of them. I guess you do not want to touch on the security piece. I'm sure, with
I'll just tell. So definitely security or this pandemic has overburdened the fintech because we have to implement a lot of solutions to protect our data, to protect our employees' data. Role-based access was just one pillar of that. So
right.
There were like artificial intelligence-based intelligent processing systems, intrusion prevention systems, file integrity monitoring systems, which are heavily costed. And it's all like machine learning based. So which generates the data, we can see a beautiful dashboard, which states that, okay, this is what like Ashwini went and accessed, but although he didn't, or he was not allowed to access, but intentionally he went and tried to access that data. Because your role was not configured, but still you tried to access. So I can have a meaningful dialogue with Ashwini, stating that Ashwini, was there a need? Or I can coach, was there a problem? So definitely the lives are becoming easier. Now I can see in this year, last year, everybody was blank that what needs to be done. A lot of new solutions, especially from the startups have come, which are providing that. So I'm building.
So we'll get to that piece as well, Rajeev. So this is the first piece of the discussion, and it's taken a lot of our time. Samuel, let me draw you in. So we have heard, though these panel members have not been very specific about the threats that they face, but yes, they have definitely shared the approach that they have taken. So zero trust being one of them, use of MDM, role-based access, firewalls. So let's have your views as well, Samuel, with the dramatic increase in distributed workforces and the growing adoption of cloud applications. The security threats are unprecedented again. What, according to you, are some of the key threats, and how are you enabling enterprises address them and ensure that their business remains secure and stable?
Thanks, Ashwini. And first of all, thanks to all the late panelists here for their insights here. Before I delve into this, I just want to talk about Cloudflare as a solution vendor, how we are solving. Before that, I want to talk about how Cloudflare solved the problem for itself, right? At Cloudflare, what we talk about is dog fooding. So what we talk of today is zero trust or the secure access service edge. We try to solve the problem of our support function having mobile access and some ticket coming in and going through the clunky VPN devices. And we thought that there should be a better way of doing it. So this is pre-pandemic world, and we deployed it ourselves. So most of our solutions or product are deployed within our network. I'm sitting here in Bangalore accessing San Francisco network or across without a VPN. So we were near 100% working from offices across the globe, being a true global organization. Come pandemic, we just moved from zero in the office to the remote working. And what we see today, it's still hybrid and things like that. But what enabled us to be non-impacted? It's exactly similar to what most of the organizations meant. You could put in two categories of organizations. One, as most of the panelists here, from a digital native companies or born in the cloud companies, right?
True.
Who have had their workloads already deployed, and they have put those control measures in place so that irrespective of where they work from, it's immaterial. There was other set of people who were based on the location, and once in, you have absolute access to these, right? So by virtue of what Cloudflare did for ourselves and how we are solving the problem for others, what we have seen is during at the impact of the pandemic, nobody anticipated. What's more important was it impacted across the globe. The organizations who were quick to bounce back or be resilient are the ones who did not have any impact significantly on their businesses. So what's important today is what everybody spoke of. A lot of people spoke of the visibility, right? Visibility is key to security. So these are one of the challenges which organizations today are facing, right? The complexity associated with the access control measures, what we have. So what you need is not that you need a need-based access and specific applications. Necessarily, as many people pointed out, that you have an access application for a particular thing on the same device. You might use an approved authorized machine, but what applications are you authorized to use? So that's where the zero trust really kicks in, and that it is not default allow. You got to authenticate users based on identity. So basically what has happened is your perimeter or ring fencing from a data center approach, or where you're closer to the server, where you're putting those ones, is moved closer to the user. Where you're putting the security applications are closer to the edge, closer to the users, as well as closer to the workforce. This is what is the most ideal, where it would not impact the security. At the same time, you don't have your employees complaining that I'm not able to even connect to the office applications.
Right. Yes, Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, so it's key is not compromising, as the title said. You've got to ensure your security of your applications, your workforce and workloads, as well as employees, but do not compromise also on the performance. You should not compromise one against each other.
Right. Interesting points. Well taken, Samuel. I'll now have very specific questions. So, most of you are digital natives. Cloud has been an essential component of your IT infrastructure. What are the challenges around security for the cloud? And how are you looking to utilize tools, controls, and design models needed to properly secure your cloud environment? Are there challenges, or you think that those challenges are well taken care of by the providers themselves? Anyone, please. Let me not pick. Let's have it free flowing. Prerak or anyone, please.
Yeah. So I'll go first, Ashwini. Ashwini, am I audible?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I'll take it first, right? See, I think the security of the cloud is not something that's in your hands. You're going with the trust of a brand Amazon or a brand Microsoft or brand Google or DigitalOcean and so on and so forth. And I think they are doing reasonably well. We're not seeing many where the cloud itself has been breached. But I think it's a question of security in the cloud as to how you behave and how you ensure you don't end up messing with the systems and applications that you have built in the cloud. That's more the context.
Very well put, Rajeev. So I'll agree with that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So given that, and given the engineering nature of the fintech that we are, and I think most of my peers, whether it's Varun from Spice Money, Rajeev, etc. We're all from digital natives, right? So I would believe that the core application development is all happening in-house to a large extent with a structure of SD 1s, 2s, 3s picked in from different organizations of different levels of maturity, right? Not necessarily from MNCs where they are groomed to information security standards, but they have been brought in more for their coding skills and their ability to think design patterns and so on and so forth, right? So I think the key point was to adopt an approach of DevSecOps, right? Bring security into the development lifecycle, right?
Right.
DevSecOps is a big jargon right now, but I think at the core of it, the essence is you want to also secure before you actually deploy, right? You want to ensure application security at a code level before you actually deploy. Because your traditional VAPT exercises, vulnerability assessments, penetration testings that are done with the help of, let's say, a third party vendor, it happens maybe once in a quarter. You could increase the frequency to once in 45 days, but there is a limit to how many times you can do VAPT exercise. So VAPT is largely point of time exercise, right? Whereas your deployments could be happening pretty much every sprint, and a sprint could be 2 weeks, right? So two approaches we brought in are around security, sorry, SAST and DAST, right? Static application security testing and dynamic application security testing. So meaning all P2, P3 deployments, let's say that, everything other than priority one would actually go through static applications testing, meaning they go through a security test, just like they would go through a unit test, they would go through integration testing, they go through UAT, they would also go through a security testing before they get a nod for the deployment.
Right.
Even though it's on a CI/CD pipeline. Likewise, the P2, P3 threads, they actually go through a dynamic application security testing, which means I would allow deployment, but then post facto I would do a black box test and I will reserve my right to reverse the deployment.
Reserve.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
I think, yeah.
Yes, Sanjay, Varundeep, anyone, please, let's have it quick now.
Yeah, so Ashwini, I believe most of the cloud breaches that you see or the security threats you see on cloud has happened on mostly on the basis of or I would say misconfigurations have been the major cause for that. So people means like while on premise also, I would not say security would need a different approach. You will still have to wear a black hat while you are working on premise or on cloud. However, leaving the misconfigured systems, servers, applications will have a larger surface area of attack, which is there. I think here the hygiene checks or the automation testing in terms of that or simulated tests will help you discover that if there are lacunas or gaps. And usually I would say like in detective series, you would have always seen the person who is least focused usually turns up to be the person who has committed that kind of a blunder. So here also we always try and protect the servers, applications which are very critical to the business, and we leave the applications which are not so critical unchecked. So I believe here in case of cloud or on premise, it is one thing which is important, that security is always to be a onion layered security. It cannot be one line of defense. You have to protect it at code, you have to protect it at infrastructure. Whatever inputs are there, you have to make sure that you have configured them right. It should not happen that you have put in an infrastructure for the sake of having it or flaunting it, and then it becomes the area where damage happens.
Right, so have proper configurations done and don't allow them to be put live or made live without testing them. Right, Anand, Sanjay?
Sure. Yeah. So for me, primarily three things. One is the whitelisting approach, where by default you do not trust, right? You allow only what you need. The second thing is how proactively can you detect? So having enough gating in place, right? Anything new which is hitting production, you make sure that it goes through the different gating process and you detect those. And if they are not meeting the criteria, do not allow, right? So that's again by default. And as part of that is that it is security is built in, not like kind of afterthought that, hey, let me go to production first and then think about how I can, make it, improve it.
It cannot follow catch up, so.
Exactly. The third thing is, I mean, no matter, security is something I feel that no matter how you plan, you may still have some, backdoor entries and all that. But when the issue happens, how quickly can you analyze and assess the impact, right? Because I think, in my opinion, that is more important. When it happens, how quickly can you detect and apply a solution, very quickly. So these are some of the fundamentals and, the principles that we have been applying.
Right. Samuel, any comments that you have here? So so cloud security and there is application security. So no, both of them are one of the concerns here.
So one of the distinct difference I've seen from an India market to the global market is how the infrastructure and the access is defined. Okay, India, as you know, that really leapfrogged many of the advanced market by virtue of mobile. What is the reason? India may not have had a typical infrastructure of the fiber backbone and all those things like many advanced market, but still leapfrog in terms of the mobile. The speed to market was significantly large. That means most of the organization, if you see that the mobile access, even today, many rural access, even the students, the kids accessing classes are on mobile. So while the broadband penetration is abysmally low in India, it's a significant high penetration of the smartphones. So what it means is today, what the biggest challenge, what we are seeing, and probably we can check with the practitioners here, is the API security. So it's become very critical, and the threats are increasingly rampant on this, right? So what we have seen, a lot of people spoke of the scale. I've seen many of my customers, the traffic growing exponential. I mean, I'm talking of the normal traffic, and many places during IPL and things like that, the systems almost are like, it's like a flash flood type of one. That's the scale of the billion of population which is using it, right? It also comes with its unique threats, which is very unique to India as compared to many other desktop access is concerned. The API security is a big threat vector. And that's an area which a lot of people would be focused on. The second thing which is speaking is a lot of our payment gateways, UPI, we are talking of, the transaction is in microseconds. If there is a delay, people tend to use anyone else. There is a business continuity, business losses associated with it. So this is where I talk about the performance part of it. India is really now looking at account aggregator. We spoke of Dr. Subramaniam speaking about it. It's in the news as well. The next big thing would be the AAI, the account aggregator platform, which is going to come. We spoke of KYC digitization and all those things. So this data ownership and the security of this, the PPI is very important. So these are some of the aspects which organizations need to ensure from a security and performance aspect is concerned, and especially with the mobile access and what we are seeing here in India.
So I echo you, Samuel. So even though in the payments, I can say there are multi-tiered tokenization and the security that happens. I deal with the credit cards and the debit cards, which are really vulnerable. But there are the multi-layered, or I can say simply, the security is in the hands of us, whether it's physical or whether it's cloud. If we are doing the proper obfuscations, if we are bringing proper encryption, decryptions that it cannot be reversed, then it is okay. If there is a leak within the system, then definitely the data can be taken. And there are so many compliances and the certificate agency which actually assess your entire infrastructure end to end. That how from the mobile phone, the credit card details are going to the server. What are the different layers? Is there any space of leakage? Is there any reversal of the encryption that can be done? And then there are other systems like I'm using a hardware secure module, which is an end-to-end encryption, which cannot be decrypted by anyone across the globe. There are only 2 companies who make the HSMs. And they're like highly costly servers, I can say. So there are solutions in the place, but it's us that if we know to pick and choose the right solution to prevent our data.
precisely.
Yeah, I agree, Rajeev.
Yes,
And
Anand.
one more change which I've seen is security is no longer the server room discussion; it's a boardroom discussion. So, a lot many times when as solution vendor we were trying to educate and say this is what it is, budgets were a constraint. Today, I mean, a lot many times it is more of a compliance, and Varundeep also spoke of. It's not a checkbox which you're doing it.
True.
You are doing it because you believe in it, because all this the CISOs, the security practitioners have now been empowered, because it's a boardroom discussion that whether your data loss or any of the data breach which is happening, it impacts not just the brand image but your business as such. So that's a big change. It's not just regulatory compliance, but it is a business continuity itself is reliant on the security. That's a sea change which I'm seeing in the market today.
Yep.
Right. Any final comments? I guess, we are nearing the cutoff time. Prerak, Anand, let's hear from you. Final closing thoughts.
Sure, I'll just add one point. We mentioned a lot of network securities, data security, application security. One tool which is available, today and is important is the change management and alerts and monitoring. So we have a very good setup. We have a lot of policies where we give all the right roles and accesses. But one point that we all miss out is, when there is a change request. So who is allowed to change, and when they, change any configuration, then who gets alerted? Right? That's a very important point on the security aspect in the which cloud today, gives us a lot of tools to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, Anand.
I would just like to add that, look, it is always easier to, talk about security with the tech teams and teams which, they find it easier to understand this. The challenge happens when, it has to be percolated across the organization. Right? And I think, there, having a good learning management system, wherein it becomes very easy and you do an assessment and, you put a KPI on your senior leadership to make sure that across the organization, the lowest common denominator on the node, the guy on the ground, who's your representative in front of, your client or your partners, a lot of training and assessment of those guys is extremely important, because otherwise, as Varundeep said, it's a tick mark, which, I think the tech teams always understand this. The digital marketing teams always understand this. It always starts happening when the lowest common node is not aware of what are the, where he can go wrong, and he puts the entire organizations to jeopardy. So I think, we've been trying to make sure that it is part of our LMS. We have, a lot of videos, which we historically used to do for other processes. We started teaching them simple stuff like phishing attacks, simple stuff like what they need to do, what are they tracked on, what are they not tracked on. I think, making sure that it becomes a DNA of a company, and I think, over the last 1.5 years, we tried a few things, but, just like we make our app simple for our customers, I think, we need to make some of these tech jargons and stuff easy for our end users who don't understand this, the end node of the organization. So I think it is important to make it consumable for them to understand how they are an important part of the organization and what all tools they need to use and what are things they can do and they cannot do. So I think, the people aspect of it to the lowest common node, I think, that's where, we've been spending a lot of our time in.
Right. I guess, I'll have to end it here before I hand over to Dimple. I'll quickly summarize of what I could get the insights from all of you. And also, it's very evident that, BFSI companies and fintech companies like yourselves are building a very strong cyber resilient system, both inside and outside of your organizations. There has been a strong focus around application security, cloud, and the concept of zero trust is surely gaining traction. So, it's good to see that IT and business leaders are surely accelerating security to match the pace of digital business initiatives. Thank you all for taking out time. I'll hand it over to Dimple. Over to you, Dimple.
Thank you, Ashwini, for taking us through such an enlightening and perspective session on how are enterprises dealing with the unprecedented growth in consumers and employees adopting digital platform post-COVID without compromising on performance and security. I'd also like to thank all the panelists for taking out time today and being a part of this session. It was an absolute pleasure to hear to you all. I'm confident that everyone in the audience has gained some really valuable insights today. Thank you once again for joining this session powered by Cloudflare. This is Dimple Bajwa signing off. Have a nice day, everyone, and stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.